Hello and welcome to another episode of Metal Punters, the Round Table. With me is your host, Nick Sims, the Godfather 1 and 2 of people. And with me is Alex Ronsky, the Goodfellas of people. And over there is Jack Cox, the Shark's Tale of people. How you doing, guys?
Great gangster film.
Yeah, good. I'm really glad I'm not.
I was going from worst to best.
I'm
so.
not the not Will Smith fish. That's a big compliment.
He is, by the fact that I don't know. Is it a toss-up between him creepier in that or him creepier in the new Aladdin movie?
I haven't seen.
His genie.
No, I think it's definitely a Shark's Tale.
Oh, yeah, it's a toss-up, but that one.
That or like what's a more rubbish film to have to sit through? That or Wild Wild West?
Oh, I don't know. Wild Wild West has the giant spider.
It's got a giant mech spider.
Which even as a kid was wicked, and now more as an adult is even cooler.
What's the? Actually, what was the one where his name's Cypher Rage and he's in it with his son?
After Earth.
Yes,
that bombshell.
Man,
Night Shyamalan.
Oh my god, is it?
Man who has to prove how macho he is to the point where his name is actually Cypher Rage.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's not in the film. The whole thing is like being passive and having no emotion, and that's his ability.
It's just him.
That's his acting career, isn't it?
I know.
It's just him bitching at his son, going, "Why aren't you better? Be better."
And then they're like, Mr. Smith, the cameras are on.
I'll keep rolling. It's fine.
We'll make a film around it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was, wasn't it? Anyway, have you been, Jack? You doing anything interesting? You DMC5ing it?
Not yet.
By the way, that's Devil May Cry to all of you hentai fans out there.
No, it's the other way around. The hentai fans all know DMC.
Oh, my apologies.
Oh, no, wait. They might think reboot.
Right, oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, I haven't had it yet. I have it at home, but I haven't had the time to...
What is it with you buying games and just not playing them?
I've played most of Resident Evil 2.
Most? You've not even finished it?
No, I've done...
You're the Resi Evil 2 guy.
I know, I did it another 3 hours, 3.5 hours.
fuck you.
I'm doing my Leon B at the minute. That's what I'm doing my Leon B. I've done the other 3.
Right, so you can do Claire A, Claire B, Leon B?
I'm doing Leon B. I've done Leon A, Claire A, and Claire B. So I'm doing my Leon B now.
So
going for the under 3 hours.
Give it to you.
Yeah, let's put away this weeby nerd shit and talk about heavy metal.
Yes, and unfortunately, I think we have to start.
Nerdier subject.
We have to start with some unfortunate, sad news, and that is the passing of Keith Flint from The Prodigy. Mm-hmm. As one suicide, apparently, as the news are calling it. Have you any of you two ever had the privilege of seeing Prodigy live?
No, I missed it.
Yes, I have.
Where did you see
I
it?
saw them download 2012.
That was the year it completely pissed it down, isn't it? One of the
only time I've seen mud like it was watching World War One footage. It was
so an Al Nathrak pit then.
Yeah, it was unreal. But like I went to go and see Slash and Miles Kennedy and came back for the last half of the Prodigy. Yeah, and even in that, like the field was just going absolutely berserk.
I mean, they're through and through a dance band, and yet they're probably they're heavier than some modern metal bands nowadays.
Yeah,
well.
easily.
And yet they're so danceable. And the thing that people didn't understand was they had 3 breakout albums. Like a band doesn't usually get there. I mean, you got Jilted Generation, which has kickstarted them.
Fat of the Land, which was
and then Invaders Must Die, which you couldn't, even as a kid, couldn't move without seeing.
Yeah, you couldn't escape that album in the best possible way, of course. But you couldn't turn on a radio.
That was like a band that was sort of, I don't know if getting a bit stale. Getting a bit stale's the right sort of phrase before that. But then they put out Invaders Must Die, and it completely revitalized how everyone.
They muscled their way back in.
That's what I mean. It's like, oh, you think you know every little trick and every little thing we have? Well, check this out. And we'll blow everyone's mind all over again. And
obviously a large part to do with that was just the presence of Keith Flint, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Who, even as a kid watching him, I think he was probably the first punk I'd ever seen on TV. Watching that Firestarter video.
I guarantee most people had the he looked scary reaction that I had
was
the first time I saw him. I was like, who is that? What is that? And how do I run away from him?
And why was
He's
this just
terrifying.
on before Madonna?
but I couldn't for every oh my god, he's terrifying. It was like, wow, this music's amazing.
Exactly, and I mean, as far as away, he probably is the last ever. I want to say he was the last ever proper heavy metal character that we have, to be honest. Because I can't think of a. I mean, you got your Mansons, Marilyn Mansons. You've got you Till Lindemans and your stuff like that. But I really think he was pretty much one of the last true characters.
Well, just on stage.
Lemmy-like figure that came out recently, other than Corey Taylor, I guess. And even Corey Taylor's, I never thought he was as mental. Expect maybe back in the day, but I wasn't exposed.
I was going to say I've watched Disaster Pieces, and even when I saw them in 2008, Corey was still a total animal.
Oh yeah, I'm not denying.
Total animal on the stage.
But I caught the Prodigy. The only time I ever caught them was I saw them in Nottingham on the day that I had also booked tickets for Clutch, which was the most brutal kicking I've ever done. But I almost didn't regret it because it was Public Enemy into the Prodigy, and the Prodigy at that time had just released Day Is My Enemy, which got a bit of a savage kicking in the press. I think it's a fucking great record, but
it's right. But it's the same problem that the Load had coming out after an album like the Black Album.
Yeah, nothing was going to follow.
Anything you bring out, Invaders Must Die, is always going to struggle because you bring out a record of that quality, and it's.
Well, anyway, I mean, getting to the point was that I caught them just because I'd never seen the Prodigy, kind of liked a couple of songs, went to go see him, and he comes strolling on before anything had happened. Literally just comes walking on, and the entire arena exploded. And this is, I mean, this is years after their. I mean, they were not so much a band that was talked about in the press anymore, and yet they were greeted as kings when they walked into there, even now. Yeah. Still, well, I saw a video of them at Glastonbury 2017, and they were still absolutely slaying it because he never lost his.
Well, you sent me that that video of them playing the day he died. You sent me that video of Poison, them playing at Rock AM Ring.
Oh yeah, that was something special.
And he's all over the stage, and then he's like in the barrier, and then he's back on the stage, and. When I saw them in 2012, it was Chase and Status on directly before them.
Oh, was this that download yet?
Yeah, I walked off about after the singer, after the hype man sort of came on and went, "Where my circle pits at?" I went, "Yeah, this is you're trying far
and
too.
Yeah, when the Prodigy come and
you're trying far too hard." And I remember seeing Pendulum a few years ago, and they carried it off almost as effortlessly as the Prodigy did. They didn't need to ask for that kind of response; they just got it.
Yeah.
And
but even then, Pendulum never had the.
Not in the same way.
The most genius thing they ever did was hiring him, to be honest, because obviously it would have just been a DJ band otherwise. But that he really made something into a show.
I mean, Maxim, you can't ever not.
Especially Maxim.
Can't take away Maxim and Liam Howlett's.
I mean, you watch videos. He's barely even singing in it, but he doesn't need to be. Yeah. He's almost just a presence.
Well, he's a bit like Bez from the Happy Mondays.
Plays the tambourine
and just dances around.
You got that because I was about to just be like, oh
dude.
I don't like
that new death metal band.
I don't really like Happy Mondays, but the one thing I do like is Bez dancing around like a complete nutcase all over the stage,
dude,
like Keith Flint.
All of the acid and all of the shrooms. He was
but just having the best time dancing around everywhere in the same way that Keith Flint always seemed to be on stage.
Yeah, what's your verdict on? Obviously, I can't see the Prodigy continuing after this. I don't know what you would do to replace him.
I think he's a tribute show of some description. Them with maybe some guest vocalists.
I would have assumed that
kind of standard, like what Chester Bennington got.
You mean kind of like what Chester and Chris Cornell
and Mitch Lucker from
Suicide
Silence.
Yes, yeah. So what, like a download headline slot with special guests, or
maybe,
just
they tried doing that for Motorhead, and they just couldn't get enough people together for the right day. They showed like a half-hour film of like Lemmy and Motorhead stuff instead.
I reckon it'll be like a Wembley Arena or something like that.
I would have assumed that like Liam Howlett will continue to put out music.
It would be nice to at least
because he was always like the creative hub of the Prodigy.
Yeah, but remember when he kicked them out and it completely kicked Maxim and Keith out for.
Did he?
He kicked them out for one day album.
Oh.
Basically, he kicked them out, did a show, and like it was just like dreadful. Like you could just tell it was. You should see it. It's a song called Spitfire. You heard of it?
It's a shame because it's a good song.
Yeah, it is a good song. It is actually a good song. Yeah. But yeah, it's like it's almost like it would be like Slipknot with 3 members.
It's a bit like Sid turning up as
DJ. The rest of them weren't there because they are still.
No, he thought he could do it himself.
So it's a bit like Sid turning up as DJ Starscream and sort of going, "This is
cool." And then just playing a Slipknot set.
Yeah, just playing it through the speakers, going,
"Yeah,
this is cool," and I like your springy DJ booth and all, but
I kind of like the rest of it.
Yeah, you kind of need those two.
I kind of want
fronting the show.
I want a marginally overweight man twatting a bin. That'd be great. Can I have that?
Yeah.
No.
Stop trying to bring your band into this.
No one's hitting.
You don't even know who I'm making fun of
yet.
Which one of them?
Anyway, rest in peace, Keith. You will be sorely missed.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of Prodigy, our next album is End of Shikari, the Mindsweep. Do you want to go for a quick singing break or go straight into it?
I'll take it away.
Okay, take it away.
I'll take this one away, and then then we'll break.
So, Mindsweep is the 4th album from End of Shikari?
Yeah, 4th. I didn't realize it was 4th as well. I got somewhere.
Yeah, I was either 4th or 5th because I was looking. I was like, "Fuck me, they've got a lot of live albums."
Yeah, they had
like
live
3.
Don't forget the remixes.
Oh, my apologies. I mean, if any band were going to do a remix,
dare you?
Especially of this album, there's at least 2.
So I made a point.
Yeah.
I made a point.
Don't you argue that point?
I'm only talking about this one.
I looked through iTunes and the Wikipedia.
So I made a point of checking a couple of End Shikari, both the newest album and the other albums out beforehand.
Oh, you went and listened to The Spark.
Yes, I did actually, and I was very interested by the progression of this band.
As I say,
because from what I can tell, and you can take it away from this point, they've had a very unusual turn in their musical career.
Oh yeah.
From going from a straight up almost screamo, because I mean everybody, no matter what, everyone knows that. But
God, I hate myself for doing that
so much.
You're doing it for the viewers, listeners. Fuck.
So every rock club, the whole place stops and does that, and I immediately go outside for 2 minutes.
So
yeah, but you do the clap still.
Very incredibly begrudgingly. Incredibly begrudgingly.
I've done it in a Carcass shirt before. That's how bad it's gotten. All right. So what's your opinion on their progression up until this point? Let's not count the Spark until later and to the.
Oh, what? So just the first 4.
Yeah.
Basically.
So where do you sit with the Shikari back catalogue and why would you pick this one?
I picked this one because it's the one I really like, and it's like this is the one that I went to see them in January at Brixton. Yeah. They were absolutely. I only listened. So
that was this year?
Yeah.
Is this the first time you've seen them then?
I saw them briefly when they did the Slam Dunk headline.
Right.
And they did all of Take to the Skies in full.
Which is their
first album, which was when I saw them, it was their homecoming show.
Yeah, on that
at Auburn Arena. It was the last show of that tour.
Yeah, and I don't hugely like that album, so I watched like 3 or 4 songs, then went and watched someone else.
Well, that makes 2 of us.
You left the Auburn Arena.
No, the live show was absolutely incredible. Like I kind of stayed because it was such a spectacle that I couldn't.
Is that when they did? The
also, I was.
That wasn't this year. That was the last. I think it was the last tour or set tour dates.
Also,
and they brought their own sound system.
After
you've got to give the band credit for just bringing their own entire rig.
That was cool. Reading about that was cool.
So, although after Your Demise and I can't remember the name of the other band that.
Then why did you bring it up, Alex?
Because it was like I was watching them going, are they going to be right to follow this? This is silly good. Yeah. And then like they came out and were blinding.
Yeah, that's so.
I was genuinely surprised by how much I enjoyed that set.
Yeah, because I knew Take to the Skies and Common Dreads a little bit, but I didn't really got into it. And then I was going to go see them.
Take to the Skies sounds like 17 other bands I have on my iPod right now. Not the band themselves, just the name. I have like 6 in my head. I'm like, Explosions in the Sky? No. Straight from the Sky? No.
Take to the Skies. But I was going to go see them.
Well, that Red Bull they're drinking.
I went back and I listened to the Spark and I listened to the Mindsweep because I was like, these are the latest 2. This is probably going to be a bulk of their set.
Right. So you've not listened to this when it came out.
No, not even a little bit. This is the past 4 months maybe or so. I've sort of like 4 months ago, I probably listened to this and listened to the Spark.
So you've had a very interesting one then. So you've gone from the newest, essentially at the time, the newest one, and then you went backwards through the catalogue.
Yeah, because if you're on that tour...
Other than that song, obviously.
Yeah, they're on that tour, so I presume it's going to be most of the Spark and bits of Mindsweep, and then the standard ones I sort of already knew.
How much is this album?
So they're not gonna not play like Mothership or Or Not a Winner.
You'd be surprised. They sort of put them in a medley.
I think you'd be surprised as well, actually.
I've
never seen them.
Because they were like they're big bangers when they came out. They're big singles. I assume they...
There was like 4 songs towards the end of like the first set. They chucked it in like a medley. So they did Last Garrison off this album, which really annoyed me because it was just like the pre-chorus and the chorus. So you didn't have like the really...
That's outrageous.
I nearly left. I was so upset.
How dare they?
How dare... It was like that... Sorry You're Not a Winner and a couple of other like big hits. Like we can't fit all of this in the set and the new stuff. So you get a minute of each one.
So
I've seen Bring Me do that, not live, but I've seen them do that as well with their earlier stuff. And I hate when bands do that.
I just want to enjoy the song. If I'm going to have that song, just play the song for me because I want to enjoy it.
Yeah, like I've seen Metallica doing.
Sounds a little different though.
Yeah, but them doing like the Kill Ride, I enjoy the Kill Ride medley, but it's one of those things where it's like, you can't play the start of Horseman and then not play it like to completion. So I fully get like you going.
You just like Sweet Home Alabama, that's why.
The greatest middle section ever.
Well, that was a joke for 3 people. Anyway, so
I started at Mindsweep and then went backwards, and I really liked Mindsweep.
So what's your opinion of the back catalogue compared to this then?
I Take to the Skies I don't like, and I'll explain why in a minute. Common Dreads is fine. A Flash Flood of Colour is, it's okay. Mindsweep I really like, and I really like the Spark as well. I really like that. But
Spark is interesting.
Considering what is sort of like the vibe of what we're talking about, I thought I'd go with Mindsweep.
So this one was like the...
It's progressive.
The album that converted you to them.
Absolutely,
as it were.
Because the thing which goes is that Take to the Skies and Common Dreads, they obviously do the synthy rock and roll sort of thing, but the synths are just so they just sound so cheap and like not mixed in very well.
Yes, but it certainly seems like a band that is struggling with its own identity and it's trying to mesh certain things into it. Yeah, and I'm gonna go now. Alex, would you like to grab that whiteboard up there for me? Because Have you done a diagram? I did a diagram of all of the bands that I issued. Oh, for fuck's sake, Alex, really? That's the second time you've done that in like 4 days.
Put it in perspective.
He's just spilled a beer can, by the way, everyone.
Yeah, Mr. Ronsky just spilt his beer can.
I did a diagram of, would you like, things what Enter Shikari done.
What's this blank bit?
What blank bit?
There's the blank bit.
Oh, the blank bit. That was the one I couldn't think of.
Oh, okay. I'll think of the top of my head as I go.
This is what I think of this album from start to finish, in a sense.
Okay, I'm quite enjoying. What?
We've got the pie chart reads in a big thick part 6th.
I'll take a picture
and then we've
of
got the Prodigy is the other big bit, and then every other band is what follows in between this.
Oh, is that Black Peaks?
Block Party, Biffy Clyro, Pendulum, and The Hell.
I totally get all of those vibes.
Yes.
Who could be in that last one?
You're not on mic, Alex. Alex is trying to talk to thin air as usual.
That's excellent, by the way. I love that. Can I take that home?
Yeah, that seems to be my biggest issue with this album. Is there's so many things I kind of like about the thing, but I feel like when I'm listening to this album, I have no clue where they sound to me like a band that is full of influences, but they don't have any. They don't congeal them into anything that sounds like Enter Shikari. Like I don't know what they actually. That's what the problem I have with this album is. It's infuriating in the sense that I don't even. The only song I can think of that sounds like This sounds like Enter Shikari as a band is The Last Garrison.
Yeah,
it's the only song. Every other song, it's like, this is the bit where you liked the Biffy Clyro. This is the bit where. What's the track? The one that begins with an A.
Anaesthetist.
Anaesthetist is fucking. It's
a Prodigy.
It's a Pendulum Prodigy song.
It is specifically Poison by Prodigy off Jilted Generation.
Yep. Is it? Oh, that's news.
Like if you like, you watch that live Rock AM Ring version where Maxim and Keith Flint are rapping over the top of it, and it is very similar.
So what we'll do, actually, after I've done my talk, we'll take a quick break and I'll have a listen to that and I'll comment on that in a minute.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. That's absolutely fine by me.
I mean, this album was produced by Dan Weller of Sixth fame, and the
I
song,
didn't know that.
the song,
that explains everything.
It explains a lot more.
The song, "There's a Price on Your Head," was that just something they used on the from like left over from the Trees sessions? That he just went. I've got a song if you want it. Like you're one track short, and we didn't use it on the first record, so it's yours if you want.
No, that's where Slipshod comes in.
Oh, have you heard Slipshod? Was that?
Slipshod is my favourite song on the record,
because it's
not for a good reason.
It's because it's the Hell doing a techno song.
Yeah, and it's great.
No, it is pretty good. I'll tell you one thing, right? I think that this band are brilliant when they're doing everything other than the heavy stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Like, I actually, weirdly enough, I know it kind of sends Alex into a Heracles-like spiral of rage where he'd kill his wife and kids if he had them. But I actually quite like the rap stuff on this album.
Okay, yeah.
What the
what bit was it?
You mean Rutan's pretentious, like from the mean streets of St Albans, like.
Selms is a mean place.
What's the one where it goes?
Oh yeah, it's
filled with old people and a cathedral.
What's the one
it's
where
basically Harlem. Yeah, you're right.
It's the mean
basically
streets of
Flint,
South.
Michigan.
It's as dangerous as like the Gotham Project when NWA came out.
The thing is, though, is at least they've been doing that their entire career. Like, if you listen back to some of their albums, they've been doing that throughout most of their career. It's not something they just put
it's
in
not something they
grime is
put
big.
in. I just don't.
Yeah, the Mindsweep to the Spark was like the biggest change.
They've had a couple of stuff. This one has definitely been the biggest change so far.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like this is a cohesive album because every single song is different, and not in a good way. In a sense that it's like I don't hear what they sound like. I feel like a band is like bands like let's just take someone like I don't know Devin Townsend. Every single album
of course,
completely
you're going to bring up Devin
different.
Townsend.
Of course I would. Every single. I mean, if Devin Townsend releases videos of him like farting into an elevator, I'd have it tattooed on my nipple. But that's besides the point.
Oh, Radiohead. That's what's missing from
Radiohead.
That's what's missing from your pie chart.
Yeah, I can hear that. I can absolutely.
Because there's one song specifically, Myopia, that it just sounds like it should be on OK Computer.
Fucking love OK Computer. You see why I like this album?
I fucking hate Radiohead. So
I know exactly why Jack loves this band.
If you look at that pie chart and you go back to that list that Nick just set out, I love all of those bands. Basically,
my thing.
Oh yeah,
that's
so
the
do I.
But my
in their own
I just
time.
don't quite like them all being ripped off.
my biggest thing with
my no, I wouldn't say ripped off.
To be fair,
so
if you were sorry, Alex. If you were a kid who never listened to most of those bands and you'd heard this, I'd think this was the tits.
All right, go on then. Just steal my point.
Oh, sorry.
That was literally what was going to come out my mouth. Like, if I'd never heard any of the bands,
your Prodigies or
like,
Six or stuff like that, you'd hear Slipshod or.
I'd hear this record and go, "Wow! Like, what an incredible blend of everything." But it's almost like the more music, the more expansive your taste, and the more you've listened to, the more this kind of becomes an exercise in picking apart the influences I found.
And that's why I think The Last Garrison works the best on this
because it's the most cohesive blend of everything they do.
Example. It's the best cohesive version of the heavy bits and the pop bits into something
like
that sounds, which is why I gave the new album a listen, because I was looking at all these songs and I'm like, all right, they're all different, and to be fair, they're an electronic bands. If you listen to an electronic album, a lot of the songs have taken influence from something else to do whatever it is, except Prodigy, but anyway. So you listen. So I was looking at it, going, what is the one song that's going to they're probably going to pick to
translate something else?
And the spark is just The Last Garrison through all the whole,
all the cleaner sections.
All the cleaner sections, because I feel like that's the one that worked for them.
You mean when they sound like N64 core?
Yes, The Last Garrison does sound like an N64 being kicked into a fucking sugar and puppy and blowjobs factory. Like all
that's
the
like the
sweetest
greatest factory on earth.
Yes,
and The Last Garrison's there.
But you listen.
Dark Side, because that's where they extract the sugar from, is the puppies.
Fine with me.
Because that's the place where the diabetes AIDS comes from.
in terms of like, I see what you mean. That it is quite
Like
a mixed match.
interlude is literally the intro to Propane Nightmares.
In a little sense, even though it's only like 52 seconds long, to be fair.
But it's like they went.
fir-
I really like that intro. Let's just there we go. Crop that in there. That'll do in between these two
I get what you mean.
songs.
This was probably the bit where they were sort of wanting.
It
to
seems
change
like a
their
band
tone.
at odds with itself.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I completely agree.
Like half the band wanted stuff from the early stuff, and then the other band wanted what new stuff they were going to
If
add into
anything,
it.
I would put it down to the fan base. I think that they would be worried about appealing to their fan base, because I believe that the one before that.
What would you say their fan base is based off of the audience you've kind of like seen at live festivals?
Oh, what do you think it is?
Top shops,
Oh, dude,
Top shops,
each and every
coffee
top
stores.
shop. Not as many coffee stores, mostly top shops and
Man buns.
It's
Top shops and man buns.
Disproportionate orphan youth in St Albans.
weirdly enough, not that many. When I was there, not actually that
By the way,
many
St
young
Albans, to
people.
anybody who doesn't understand, is like one of the nicest places
In
the whole
Hertfordshire.
of
And it's where they're from. So,
Anyway,
the fan base is definitely basically people of like mid 20s to early 30s. That is the fan base.
Yeah, yeah.
That is what they attract. It is people who like you, Alex, who saw them probably back in the day or got into them back in 2005 or whatever it was, and went from there and just stuck with it. Their change on this one, because a Flash of Colour is quite electronic, like through and through.
Yeah.
And the Spark is electronic and still got some guitar bits.
the Spark is probably the most electronic they've gone so far.
But it's the most relaxed they've also gone. Like in terms of like the music.
I guess
is,
so.
The
yeah,
music is
based off
still
what I heard.
got a high-ish energy. It's still upbeat and it's still quite up tempo.
Well, it was
but
basically
it's
screen
not got the
core,
heavy.
like whatever core you want to put onto it, with like just like flat out beautiful electronic bits into it.
Yeah, and it's mostly clean.
There was a
guitar
lot. I'm
and-
gonna say there was a lot of screamo on the first.
Yeah, and that's
the
the
first
thing.
records.
It's this progression of this was definitely like the middle album between we're gonna do like heavy electronic stuff on Flash of Colour and we're gonna do something way more chilled and way more relaxed on the Spark. And this was that middle ground.
Based off what I heard from the Flash of Colour, it's that's the most punky they've ever gotten.
Yeah, but there's also a lot of heavy dub synth.
Yeah,
in it,
well,
like,
that would be
absurd
that would be
amount.
reflective of the time they were probably.
Oh
in
yeah,
at the
because
moment. I feel like this band are very.
Flash of Colour was 2012.
Yeah, exactly. So
Peak
it's
of
like zeitgeist as
dubstep
fuck,
and stuff
pretty
like
much.
that. Yeah, and
So-
this was 2015. So
I've got two things I'd like to bring up, and I'll
yes.
bring them up in order of what hurt me the most.
All right.
So the Appeal and the Mindsweep, parts 1 and 2,
Yeah.
I
they're the
quite
same
like those.
song.
Not really. They're actually
It's-
they
it's-
are the
not
same
really.
song.
Virtually the same thing.
One of them has the rap bit cut out, and the other bit has like an almost sax, not sax, but like it has almost like an orchestral like
electronic
end.
synth
to
I
it,
was
built
that-
into
it-
which I quite liked actually.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I enjoy starting the album and finishing the album the same way. It's
Like, I
quite
will
nice.
say-
So
Well, yeah.
is it like something they do to bookend like the live set?
Well, there's the thing, because if you look
Because
on the
otherwise
Wikipedia-
I can't see the point of having virtually the same thing.
the thing is, Alex, is you look at the
At the end of the
Wikipedia
record.
page, which I just looked at today.
Like, I know-
Slipshot's not on it.
Yeah, Slipshot is an additional song.
Slipshot is
Oh, is
actually
it a bonus track?
Yeah, which is why when I was at Brixton, they played Slipshot, and it was the only
Right.
first time they played it in. I'm gonna guess like 5 years or
recent
something
as
like
well.
that.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
They only did it at the London venue. They didn't do
Which,
it.
by the way, Slipshot, let's all be fair, is a fun song.
Oh, it's
like,
a great.
it's
It's
really
have
fun.
you seen the
song.
video? Did you
I
watch the
was-
video?
No, I didn't.
No,
see
Oh,
my-
the
do you know-
video's
do you know
all
my-
animated and it's
do you know
animates out the
my-
entire thing.
My favourite version of that video.
Oh, what Slipshot?
Yeah. So you start that song and then you sync it up with The Fever by The Hell.
It's
Like,
pretty fun.
wait, I was
Yeah, okay.
waiting for it. Like I was
Oh,
I was
I'm
watching
getting
it
that.
and
So
waiting, like, and just going. All this needs is him to shout "cunt" at a really inappropriate moment, and he
And
goes,
then at the
"You
very
cunt!"
end-
and then
at the very end he goes, "You
literally,
cunt."
like Nails from The Hell goes like throws a big arm and does that, and it synced up perfectly with
Because if you actually watch the video,
Rue shouting "You cunt,"
just
and I was
video-
like, "This is magic."
A Price on Your Head is a sequel video to Slipshot.
What?
A Price on Your Head.
By
Oh, it's a sequel
Sixth,
video.
It's a
All right, I
sequel
was gonna
video.
say,
It's
comes
kind of like a
7
sequel
songs
video.
before
a price on your head by Sixth.
Yeah.
It's like a sequel video, and it's kind of like a sequel song because the Slipshot one is obviously they go into the restaurant and they shout, well, they won't see the manager and it's bad service.
Yeah.
And Price on Your Head is from the perspective of the manager.
Whatever it
Yeah,
goes.
it's from the perspective of the manager saying that he's upper class, get these people out of here, go sort them out, and then they get chased by police and his antics and stuff
Oh.
like that.
Okay.
But it's all quite good. It's all good. The animation's fantastic.
I
and
will say,
overly cartoony.
the first time I heard this, I was cursing your name.
As per.
But I will
It's happened with
say
most of
there
the
are
things I put on.
there are some earworms to this record.
I'm sorry, there are bits that definitely grew on me. But this brings me to my second point.
Oh yes, you're upset. I forgot. As per.
Yeah, Alec, he's more.
Is this
upset
Black
than I am.
Sabbath from the '60s? No, I don't care.
Funny man. No, because
Funny man
Sabbath
with
never
funny
wrote.
jokes.
Black Sabbath never wrote a song that was anywhere near as shit as Dear Future Historians.
I don't know. Have you heard anything from fucking like 13?
No, that's just rehashing the past.
Wow.
It's not bad. It's just mediocrity.
Oh, we
like,
got
like,
berated
it's
for
just,
being
it's
Sabbath.
just, it's just,
I can't defend
it's just
that one.
mediocrity squared.
Dear Future Historians.
Dear
is a
Future
fine-
Historians
Dear
is.
Future Historians is the worst song on the record.
Yeah, it's fine. It's
It's-
passable.
No, it's
Wettest
not. It's
noodle
not
I've ever
fine.
listened to.
It's like Coldplay playing at being Pink Floyd. It's fucking dire.
It's not
It is.
that bad.
It is musical
It's the
aids.
worst song on the record.
It
It
is
is the worst
musical
song on the record,
By
aids.
like,
a mile, though. Like,
It's
none of
fucking-
the songs are
I
that bad.
Fuck off. Get in the fucking bin. Go away.
Ooh, someone's
Right?
getting upset.
It is fucking dire. I'm about to
He's too busy and he's about to swing.
bring up I'm about to bring up a record with a band later on who are notorious for bad chorus repeats and
Oh, that is
like,
on my list.
some choice songwriting choices.
What's
Well,
the name
that
of a
was
man who
incredibly
wanders and he has no place to stay? What's that called again? Fuck. Anyway, sorry. I was just thinking about something else.
I think we're all on the same page with that one. But
Those
just
are the
like
things that upset you.
just the horrible vocal tics he seems to have in that song specifically. He never uses them throughout the rest of the record.
See-
Like it made me want to plunge hot knitting needles into my eardrums so I could never hear sound
actually
again.
on this, because if not, he does an amazing impression of him. Like if
He's
Mikey
not,
ever
yeah.
died and like they needed someone to replace him, he would actually
Rue.
be amazing.
He
for it.
doesn't deserve it.
Okay, well, okay. I'm going to say my last piece on this, which is like I still don't necessarily think I like Enter Shikari, but this is probably the closest thing they've ever done to a not a great but a good record. Like it's the closest I think they've come to a good record.
Fair.
I would say it if I was to when I'm walking past them to go watch Tool. At download, I'll begrudgingly nod my head to a couple of songs if they decided to play them. And I actually, despite saying it's a Prodigy ripoff, I thought Beneath the Test is actually a really good song.
It is a good song.
And Ethan
Although you
Tist
just-
might be my favourite song on the record, to be fair.
Fair point. then.
Last Garrison's is true as well.
I definitely
And
say
Slapshot and
Last Garrison. I like things like Torn Apart. I like Bank of England. I like the way they.
But my
progress,
Torn
and I
Apart
like-
is I almost thought it was Myopia like interlude and then that. It almost sounds like it's just one song.
Yeah.
Like
I
to the
think
point
that's
where I forgot
kind
there were actually 3 songs.
I think that's kind of the idea.
Basically,
I think the interlude was as a separate track is kind of unnecessary, but I guess it's more if someone wanted to listen to that one, then Torn Apart, you can skip it rather than having these big long transitions.
I'm very happy that this band are not a band that loves doing interludes into different songs. Because when I first looked at this, I'm like, because I was just looking at it from like a guy who kind of listens to electronic music track. I'm like, all right, that's the skit, that's the skit, that's the skit, and I'm like, oh, and they actually gratefully don't do anything like that.
Yeah.
Slapshot's the closest thing, and it's at the end of the song, and it's
Yeah,
actually a
yeah.
good song.
Well, yeah, it's your bonus anyway.
We never actually described what this podcast is about, by the way.
Oh yeah.
No, we didn't do that.
But
Do you want to book that in the end? Maybe?
Yeah, we'll do it at the end. We'll do it at the end.
All right.
All right. Anyway,
Did they ever succeed in their revolution against the man in his
no,
many
don't bring
forms,
this up.
in his many and multiple forms?
This is not a problem I have so much with this band, but I cannot.
In
fucking stand
general,
bands just
bands
talk
that
about-
use
Oh.
they will. Like
Never.
they, who are they, and what? How are they holding you down?
They're the man. God damn it, Ronsky, it's the man.
Yeah, and you listen to the
Yeah,
Thieves.
but,
Don't
like,
you understand, Ronsky? The man is stopping me with my skateboards and my electronica.
All right, cool. Because like when you're referencing William Wallace and King Arthur, you should probably reference what it is you're attacking.
Cringe that bit.
I don't remember that bit. I'm not gonna
It's the
lie.
one.
It's in Minesweeper 1, and then he screams, "You have no idea what you've got yourself into." And it's like, no,
Oh,
nor
yeah,
do
yeah.
I, because you
Doesn't he
haven't
scream
told me.
Spanner as well.
Oh my god, when he screamed, "You fucking spanner!" I pissed my. I was like, "This is the hell." I knew it.
It probably has like a member of the hell in
Well,
it.
like, that's why I'm.
You're trying to rack your brain about.
Like,
and
I'm
think
trying
if
to
Rue was
think. What,
secretly in
well,
the
I'm trying to
hell.
think what record came out first. The first record by the Hell or this?
Oh, I'm not sure actually.
Because
Let's not
God,
forget-
If
who
not,
would care,
if
even
not,
if it was true?
which like
I'm intrigued.
someone stole lots of little.
If I can remember
things.
right, because I was actually a massive fan of the first Hell album.
That's
It
'cause it's
came out
brilliant.
around 2015-16, so I think it was just after this actually, the first record.
Going to the wiki, good old wiki.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, weirdly enough, because the thing is I feel like they're all friends. Because if I mean, I'm certain.
Oh, because of course they had the album, but they had you listening to the Hell, didn't they?
Yeah, you listen to the Hell,
Well,
which I'm not going to do an impression of, even though I really want to.
I say they're the.
August 2013 was you listening to the Hell.
They were all from the
So
same.
two
I think we're losing the tangent here anyway.
I
Oh,
say
yeah,
the
anyway.
guys from the Hell were all in the same generation as Shikari.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like
I think
all
the
their
production-
earlier bands were like the
All
generation
they
that
were
came
all
out
mates
after
and-
like Gallows and Sixth and
Yeah, all
Stuff
the
from
the-
Shikari,
from,
like, the
old
local
Squatford
scene.
Locals.
Yeah.
In short, I really like this album. I think it's really good. I like
Yeah.
I like the variety on it. I like the way they use Rue. And
I like the variety. I
the
just
bass player.
question where it came from. That's all.
Yeah, they just like different things. I'm guessing as an influence. So they think I'm going to do
I'm
something
sure there's
like
bands
this.
that like different things. It's just like they sound very similar to bands of that nature, especially the Biffy Clyro one, which I wish I could remember what it was, but I think I've got it in my notes somewhere.
Bank of England.
yes, Bank of
Yeah,
England
Bank
is the
of
one that
England.
sounded super duper Biffy.
Yeah.
I will say the songs I like
like
on this
Captain.
record. I would like to welcome to the skirmish.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Yeah. There's another turn of phrase
All
I
right,
did not
enough
enjoy.
of that. I think Alex is gonna burst a fucking vein in his forehead if we talk about this.
I mean,
any
this
longer.
isn't to say I didn't enjoy bits of this record. I know it's coming off like I'm just hacking at
Having a
it
bad
with
time.
a Stanley blade or something. But there were bits I like. An anaesthetist and
To be fair, I think making old man Ronsky listen to new kids electronic
dude.
music was probably a bad idea. In
Dude,
the first
you gotta
place.
wait to what I've got for next week.
Oh no! I don't even know what you've got, and I don't. Fuck's sake.
well, that might well have solidified my choice.
We do have. This show does have a veto, by the way. I will tell you that.
You get
Everyone
one
in this show
veto.
gets one veto for one guy. So
Oh,
anyway,
okay.
that was the Mindsweep by M.
Yeah.
Shikari.
Favourite
Would
song?
you like to pick a favorite song, Alex, and a worst song?
I'm gonna pick an anaesthetist for my favourite song,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm
Very fair.
by a country mile gonna have to Future Historians.
Yeah, I'm gonna say "Last
If I-
Garrison's still my favorite song on this record, and I actually
Yeah.
consider that song to be an actual anthem. Like
It's a
I
banger.
genuinely liked that song before I'd even listened to this album.
Yeah.
Future Historians is the worst song.
Yeah.
Possibly of their career.
Oh, I don't know about that. I
I've,
haven't gone
I've
that
heard
far
other
back
slow
into
songs
their
by
stuff.
them, and they made me less angry than
It's certainly the
the
most.
I see
Future
what you
Historians
mean.
made me.
It's certainly the most questionable song I'd say of their career.
Yeah.
Considering
it was
what
one that
they
makes
are.
you think, but not in a good way. I'd probably agree with
It's
Nick.
more
and
like
say Last Garrison or There's a
how
Price on
much
Your
American squirty cheese did he pour onto these lyrics and that vocal delivery.
American Square Cheese. This is the most English album we've.
Yes,
It's
I
more
know.
English than the Iron Maiden.
No,
record
no,
we're
I
about
know,
to
but
listen
like
to.
I know, but in terms of like just like synthetic rubbish.
Alex,
which
he's
is
trying
how
to
that
pick his
song comes
favourite
off,
song.
sorry.
Just let him pick his favourite song.
Yeah, I like Last Garrison. There we
You
go.
like There's no worse
It's really
song than
good.
that. All right, there was Enter Shikari and the Mindsweep. What song would you like to?
I will go with Last Garrison just for
Last
the.
Garrison.
It's got to be
All right,
the
there
one
we go.
to hopefully lead people in.
Last Garrison.
Can you hear the war cry? The adrenaline bursts through the riverbanks. Welcome to the skirmish. Give me more free, give me more free, give me more. No doubt, this is a tragedy for all. Heads up and thank fuck you're still alive. Still air in my lungs, still blood in my veins. We're part of the last garrison. Still alive. Still air in my lungs, still blood in my veins. We're part of the last garrison.
All right, next up we have Kvelertak with their full-length AP, Kvelertak, or as some indie cunt has called it online, Kvelertak, which makes me actually want to punch my own
Was
screen.
it Rue Reynolds and his big hipster glasses?
No, it was someone who will remain nameless that I watched a review of anyway. This is the album that came out on the 21st, 2010, and the artwork was actually drawn by the lead singer of Baroness, believe it or not,
That's
who is
weird
one
bit of trivia.
talented
Well,
motherfucker.
you can tell
Oh, it's
because
beautiful.
it's as beautiful as all the Baroness
Yes.
like album covers.
We're not here
are.
about to talk about Baroness. Anyway, I first
Baroness.
became I first became aware of Kvelertak when they, I believe it was the now defunct Metal Hammer podcast was brought them up, and it was Black and Roll, which I'd never heard before and thought was a racial slur. And that's how little I knew of black metal at the time, and decided to give it a go. I believe it was actually, I'd heard about it, and then like a couple of days afterwards, the Mudjod, I think I'm describing it as, showed up on... Mjord, sorry, okay. God, you're a bigger fan than I am, apparently.
Have you not seen the Thor films?
No, oh, is that what that is?
Yeah, it's
oh,
Mjord,
right.
it's the
that makes way more sense.
Yeah.
Viking
That's
drink.
Mjolnir.
It's Viking booze, isn't it?
Oh, it's mead, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, I'd seen them. I saw that video and was like, "Why is these guys that look like Biffy Clyro killing people on screen?" And
He does look a lot like Simon Neil.
And then I ended up. So they ended up playing. I believe it was one of their first ever shows. They ended up playing Download on the first year. It decided that it was going to turn to Iceland and rained so badly that 3 of us got hypothermia.
No, that was 2011.
No,
the year that started was 2010.
Oh, okay. My apologies. Well, 2011 is the first year I ended up going to Download.
I almost, because I very nearly caught hypothermia watching Airborne and then Aerosmith.
And they played, they opened up and played to
Brilliant,
about,
freezing.
I would probably say kindly, on the second stage, they played to about 30 people.
The second stage?
The second
Really?
stage. That's how cold it was, though.
But that's a big spot for a band on their debut record. That's a massive
This is
spot.
how much this was kind of the first band that ever did something like this.
So
They were on the third stage.
how high
No,
up the,
second.
how high up the bill were they?
First band on.
And that's
still
not
good,
that's not unheard of, but that's still very impressive for a
Yeah,
first
absolutely.
album.
Yeah.
Like jumping onto a bill.
I mean, they were followed
Like
by
that.
Quar and Turrisas, so make of that what you will.
Someone definitely got that billing wrong.
I mean, Turrisas got pretty high up on the bill. So if you want to talk about another band,
Turas who definitely belong in the toilet.
I believe it was the second stage. I'm pretty certain because it was the big one, and the third stage wasn't a 10 at that. Sorry, it was a 10 at that point.
I'm
Still a 10.
I'm checking. I'll get back to you once I've filtered through that.
Anyway, so they made a quite impressive impression when they lead singer's first song jumped out into the crowd, and me and my friend held him up and ran around the field of Download with him.
Really?
And considering the fact that he's a bit of a chubby bastard,
he's a big man.
and yes, quite a big man as well at that. And then I ended up catching them at the Borderline before it had gotten redone. I'd accidentally booked tickets to go see them the day after Download
Yeah,
without
the
realizing.
Monday.
So I stumbled up to the Borderline, hungover as fuck, miserable and almost wanting to leave. And I would probably go as far as to say it was at the time was my favorite show I'd ever seen in my life. They were on fire, destroyed the stage, kicked. First time I'd ever seen a band kicking pints out of people's hands on the bar.
Right.
And
I'm starting to understand your obsession with this band.
Well, I mean, I'd never been exposed to black metal before at that point, I don't think. The heaviest band I'd been listening to then would have probably been System of a Down.
Yeah.
So
Do you not said Slipknot were heavier? Were you not listening?
it's a toss-up
Was
between
that
Slipknot
era?
and
'Cause
System.
So
me,
with
I
all
guess.
the death and grind influences in
But
Slipknot.
I didn't know what that was at that point.
No, I know. Sonically, you'd have known this is
This is heavy.
Okay, yeah, anyway. Well, it was...
super extreme, but like the black metal sound in this is like a totally
Yes,
different, totally different heavy.
And it was interesting as well because it was actually so much more palatable because it was brought through with these sweepingly, like I wouldn't say beautiful, but almost like these AC/DC like tendency to just rip into.
I was going to say they have their little Thin Lizzy harmony moments where it goes from sort of blasts of icy northernness to these really lovely, like folky harmony parts.
Well, anyway, and then it cut to, I believe it. I wouldn't see them again till probably about I think it was the Big Four Sonosphere where it was either that year or the year before that or your year after that where it was Queens of the Stone Age, Kvelertak or Devon Townsend Acoustic, and at that point I developed a obsession is a kind word of saying for Devon Townsend, and I literally saw people. The crowd would come to see Queens of the Stone Age, and then at that point, to speak of Kvelertak being almost like the new Mastodon, as it was hyped on Metal Hammer, the crowd literally split halfway through, with half of the crowd going one way and the other half going to see Kvelertak. Now, unfortunately, I went to go see Devin. I wouldn't say unfortunately, but this was on the second.
great.
So your man crush for Devin
Couldn't be stopped.
wouldn't allow you to say something like that.
It was like
I'm
a
sure.
magnetic pull on my erection, and apparently Kvelertak slayed it. And then they released the third album, which would not be talked about today.
Okay, cool, great.
So
Kvelerquo.
I would have to say this.
Oh yes, okay, yeah, I know of this.
I would have to say this was probably my first obsession into black metal, which would be later stated by Watain. So this is
It's a bit of a jump.
Yeah, it kind of was actually, especially since that was
Just
also
a little,
the
just
day
a
I
little,
saw
just-
Gojira.
just a little bit of a jump.
The day I saw Gojira as well. So I never heard of them.
Strange
for the
enough,
first
that was
time.
the first day that I saw Gojira as well, and what a show that was.
This album was produced by Kurt Ballou, who at the time would have meant nothing to me, but now I kind of completely
Kind
understand.
of like records what our
Kurt Ballou is the
It's the Brett from Converge,
guitarist
isn't he?
from
no,
Converge.
From Converge.
Yeah, that's what I said. The Brett
I
from
thought he said
Converge.
Code Orange.
He produced. I'm pretty sure he could.
He's done loads of production.
I'm
He's
pretty sure
done
he
loads,
produced
yeah.
a Code Orange album.
He did Forever.
Oh, he did Forever.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he did the one
I'm
before
King.
it. Yeah.
No, he might have done that as well, but I know he did the
Maybe.
Code Orange Kids one, and then he did
Yeah.
again anyway. So yeah, this is my absolute obsession with this band, was just because of how much this album, in my personal opinion, completely fucking destroys from start to finish. It will, for me personally, does not let me go from to the point where I thought I was going to be sick of this album when I put it on. I must have listened to this album this week about 15 times, and every single time it opens up with Kvelertak, I almost want to kick stuff off my table. But anyway, enough about my obsession with it. Alex, what do you think of it?
I really like this record.
Yeah.
Really, really like this record. There was another record that came out. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before.
It would have been last year, I believe, if I
Last
remember
year.
the one you're talking about.
The Bocassa record.
Mm-hmm.
And so you said to me at the time, you wait till you hear this Kvelertak record, it will stomp all over it. Like, you'll forget all about Bocassa.
Yeah.
And I can't say that's the case.
Is it because Bocassa's more rock and roll than they are into the kind of slightly black metal stuff?
Maybe. Like, the black metal bits don't... Like, I like black metal, so the black metal infused bits don't...
Oh, I'm sure they don't
bother
bug
me
you
like
now,
at all. Like this sounds like I'm doing it down already, and I'm really not, because I really had a good time every time I listened to this record. I don't know if you might have just overhyped it to me before
Probably.
I'd heard it. So like the bar you'd set for it was like almost insurmountable, I guess. but like then a song like Mjords or like. What's the Sultans of Satan?
Sultans of Satan rules.
Is it
Necroscope?
No, it's the one that it's. I think it might be the sixth song, where it goes all sort of like they have the really pretty little folky bit, and then it goes into this really wild, swinging like.
I'm going to pronounce it here, but I'm going to get it completely wrong because Norwegian is only my third language. So,
What's your second?
Ebolik.
Helt ver cool.
Johan Yna.
Something like I like that.
Slayed that pronunciation. Absolutely.
Why do you
nailed
think I
it.
was not going to talk about the songs on this album or their names?
Anyway, the one that has like it comes flying out the traps, and then it sort of,
That's all of them.
but then it goes into this really pretty like folk section in the middle,
Yep.
and then like
Yeah, that is. This one, I
comes
believe.
back in with this really big nut swinging like harmonized guitar part, and it's like really
Yeah, almost goes
jaunty,
Thin Lizzy-esque almost. in a
like,
way.
but like a super jaunty with like loads of swing to it, Thin Lizzy type guitar section, and yeah, I had a lovely.
liked it.
Lovely old time listening to this
Are there any
record.
moments that kind of stick out for you? Because to me, this album is almost like Rain in Blood in the sense that it doesn't stop from start to finish, even when it goes slower.
I kind of drop off a little bit after Necroscope.
That's fair.
It's not
I'd say
say
like 3 more
it's not
songs,
say they're
yeah.
bad songs. at all.
I think the
they
song,
just don't sort of like if the first few sort of grab you by the throat and don't let go, then I'm.
Well, considering
it's almost
Necroscope is near the end of the album.
That's what I mean. I'm sort of a little bit tired by the time I get to the end.
I would kind of agree with you.
Do you know what I
I
mean?
passed out and the choking isn't doing me any favours anymore.
Yeah, like, but
My
it's,
erection is gone.
but it was a delightful time whilst it lasted.
Oh, yes.
What about you, Alex? Jack, you've been fairly quiet.
I just let him say his piece. I thought it was all right. It didn't.
This was not the album I thought was going to get you. To be fair.
I thought it was. This black and roll racial slur of a genre.
Yes.
So I'll send you some death and roll at some point, and then we can.
Sweet.
Can't say that, Alex.
What, Entombed?
He said it.
It's the black metal that doesn't do it for me.
I thought, considering the fact that it was married so well with the catchiness, that it's not quite so harsh on the
It's
ears.
too jarring. I think. I don't think some of the songs which have these more aggressive black metal sections.
It kind of goes more aggressive towards the end than it does so much. It
that's
works your way
that's
up
the thing,
to it.
Is
Necroscope is the most black metal they get for the moment.
I think that as it started, I was like, yeah, this is all right. Yeah, I'm enjoying that. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying like, yeah, this is still like 6, 7 out of 10. It's still like
it's bad. It's not
well
bad,
above
okay.
average. Like, and then it gets to Soul to the Satan, and I go, this is like the shit. I fucking love this song.
That song is amazing.
And then I start to dip back downward and start to have less of a good time as it starts
Again,
to get
you're
more
all
black
still
metal, more
talking about
progressive.
the ends of the album for me.
Yeah, Soul to the Satan is still track like
I'd
6 or
say
7.
Soul to the Satan 7.
7.
I think 10 is where it completely peaks for me. The last song I kind of didn't need because the number 10 has like a brilliant outro that would almost just perfectly finish the album, and then it kind of goes one more too much.
One more too
I was
many,
going to say, like on a 11-track album, it's kind of hard to call the first 7 tracks front loading. But for me, like, do you know what I mean? Because that would really be like stretching the term.
Yeah.
But for me, like
It is
kind of
like
after,
saying it peaks after Jesus saves on.
No, you haven't even had.
No, that's what I mean.
Say you hadn't even had Epidemic by that
Yeah,
point.
yeah, that's what I mean.
But yeah, I'm fully with you on.
I really like the rock and roll bits of it. I think that they're much stronger than the black metal bits. And I think that's why the groove, the way the riffs are written, the solos are just so much.
Well, that's interesting
stronger.
then, because you might like their second album more.
No, so not the third, not this.
No, you
Kvelertak
probably
one.
like the third one the most.
status. Not status tack.
Not stated.
Not tackle.
So what happened was that there's just to give you a little history of the trajectory of what this band was. This band, for me personally, peaked with this album. I think that there's few bands that get what they're trying to sound like nailed on the first try. A lot of times it happens on the third or the fourth one.
Takes a big progression.
And then what had happened was this band had taken it to the peak on their first album, and they kind of dipped from there. They added more rock and roll into the second bit and less black metal, and it kind of hurt them. It was rated fairly highly, but it was just more of the same to a lot of people.
Okay.
And then the third one, they introduced not only clean singing, but almost ballads into it.
Because
Okay,
there are bits of this record that almost have clean. It's less black metal sort of shrieking and more kind of.
We have to remember where they're from as well. The influences they're from Norway.
The land of
Norway.
black metal.
Yes, exactly. Like, it's almost like they've taken their genre that is definitive of their country and then gone. We just fucking love AC/DC and Thin Lizzy and stuff. And I don't know. I can't name another band that I personally think, especially on their first album, has gotten what they wanted to sound like sound so perfectly.
Would
well.
you say it would
agree.
like their equivalent of Entombed's Wolverine Blues in terms of marrying the two things they're trying to marry?
Yeah, I don't think they're marrying the same thing. But if we're talking about
obviously
the rock and roll
Entombed
and
is
the
like
black
that.
metal,
yeah.
rather than
Entombed is that like Swedish buzzsaw death metal.
Yeah, Entombed have got a couple of those though, whereas
and,
I feel like Kvelertak have got.
Kvelertak have
Unfortunately,
that.
have only got 1.5.
So they just sort of went
Yeah.
more rock and roll in the second one.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
silly classic level rock and roll.
Shit
in
the
third.
bed, I believe, is the technical term.
I think if
see.
you also remember the time that they come out, you had on the main stage Medina Lake, Escape the Fate.
Oh, dude, I was like, they weren't.
Like, they had come out at a time where music had just
Failed.
the late
The polite word
the
is
late
failed.
2000s was probably the worst metal. I mean, you'd still have your convergers and stuff like
I
that in
was
the
so
background. But
deeply entrenched in.
Background.
for a band
is the key
to have
word.
come out of an extreme metal genre and kicked the door in, I almost think Kvelertak were the wave that
I
allowed
was
bands
gonna say,
like
I
that
was
to come into this.
so deeply entrenched in like Lamb of God and stuff at that point, because all the more popular your Kids in
The new
Glass
stuff.
Houses,
Duff McKagan's Loaded.
yeah, that
Puddle of Mudd.
really
Aim is
new
to mention
bands,
that every week.
Oh, we
like
want to talk about rock and roll.
Blitz Kids, all that rubbish.
I think because just before Kvelertak was on, it was Karma to Burn, because I was just looking at the thing. They
Yeah.
weren't first on the second stage. Probably the first band you went to see on the second stage.
Yes, they were.
It was Karma to Burn, and before that was Yashin.
oh,
God,
well,
do you remember Yashin?
Oh, they're still around.
I try not
Are
to.
they? Could they stop? Could they
Like,
not?
you leave Scottish, My Chemical.
No.
Trying to My Chemical
I'm not
Pendulum.
talking about Yashin. when we talk about
Scottish
Kvelertak.
My Chemical
Yeah, but Yashin,
Pendulum.
Nick.
My Chemical Pendulum. There you go.
Like the only other bands that were more extreme than this at the time, not more extreme, but on the same level of extremity at the time, was Suicide Silence and I guess Bring Me the Horizon.
Oh, what they were kicking doors in for?
I mean, just talking about extreme bands that had gotten it had been
Some
allowed onto
recognition.
a stage that
Yeah.
that didn't have a tent on
Didn't
it.
have a tent over it. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like this band is the thing is. I mean, they got hyped up to fuck, considering the fact that they were being put on with like Mastodon. And for the love of God, the last time I actually saw them, besides the Mastodon show, funnily enough, was them supporting Metallica on their own tour,
Oh, that
which
was
was not good.
last year?
2000. It was the Hardwired show at Manchester. So
that
make
was
it
the
what you will.
same. The
That
same
was the only support
tour.
as well, wasn't it? There was only them.
Yeah.
It was yes.
Yeah,
That was the
that's a
same.
tough show, man.
The
Yeah.
same tour that my friend sent me a picture saying, "You know lots of bands. Who's this dickhead with the owl on his head?" Hey,
He didn't have an owl. He did
Stop
not have
it.
an owl on that
Stop.
one.
Maybe because everyone bullied him with the
I
live
think,
shows for
I think
it.
they'd actually kicked him out at that point.
Have they really?
They've got a new singer.
Owlman.
So I
now.
know when we.
I knew about Owlman. and that was
Because
about it.
I know when we.
Owlman's on their second album as well. Weirdly enough, it was
Love
not about their
Owlman.
first album.
I know we saw him. I know when we saw them with Mastodon, they had the new guy,
New singer, yeah.
who was brilliant. Like that show was.
Yes, I'm very
They were-
much
they were very
hoping
good.
that they're gonna go back to doing their older stuff again. I'm very much looking forward to a Kvelertak revival because other than referencing this album today, I've not actually thought about Kvelertak in a relative term
For a while.
Almost years, I'd say.
Yeah,
As
fair
a
enough.
sort of contender.
But I was just gonna say I'm not making an excuse because I fucking love this album. But from literally, if you
record.
think about it from a historical point of view, they were kind of one of the first bands that got through with
Yeah, they-
press and also success in some sense.
Well,
Yeah,
for a
they
band
got
that
through,
sing
but-
entirely in Norwegian as well, to
Yeah.
be like, at least at
They've got
second
one
stage.
song where they sing in English,
predominantly Norwegian.
almost all
Um,
Norwegian.
Like bands that people sort of pay attention. Like I can really only think of Rammstein for bands that don't sing in English.
I mean black metal, but you know.
Yeah,
but
right.
you don't
But
know
no,
what
no.
they're
But
saying
I mean,
anyway.
No,
I mean,
exactly.
like, but bands that get sort of pushed that don't sing in
forward, yeah,
English,
yeah.
like they don't tend to.
Especially so
I
on a
actually-
Walloped up.
I'm struggling to
So
think of
like,
ones other than
with
Rammstein
the
and-
obvious exception of Rammstein. So for them to do that in an album that's predominantly sung in Norwegian in that vocal style, it's quite a feat.
No, it's absolute
especially
props
when
to
you've
them.
got a song
massive
called
feat.
Mjod, which is just about getting
Shit-faced with
shit-faced
Odin.
for Odin. Like, other than a Monomorph, I can't think of another band that's done that with any conviction.
And
Well,
even
we're
they
gonna get
death growl.
shit-faced. Do it for God.
And even they death growl in English. So
All right, well, I guess that's that then. Would you like to pick a favourite song or worst song?
it's a
Get my list up.
monkey knife fight between Sultans of Satan and Mjord for me for best.
What about Bluetest? Blue, tush.
Yeah, that was a good.
That chorus will never leave your head, by the way.
It's well, like I say, the first 8 tracks on this record are a wonderful time.
Yeah, and I think, especially for a first album, that's a relatively amazing thing to do.
I'm gonna go with the 11th, the last track.
Really?
For
That was the
worst,
worst
just
one.
because
Oh, yeah.
by that point I'm kind of done with the record.
Yes, fuck does nothing for me either.
Which I realise is a bit harsh for a record that does really sort of keep the quality as high as it does throughout.
Yeah.
But just for me, by that point, it's like
You're over. You're done.
You're tired.
I've had a lovely old time, and I'm ready to put something.
I think
else
if
on.
Ready to sit on the train and go home now.
I mean, if
Yeah, like it's you know,
It's the end of the gig
I'm
for
gonna
you,
go put a happy record on now, on a big.
I mean,
shit,
I always
big
feel
shit
like
kicker of a record.
this, especially this album, Kvelertak, were kind of like your drug addict friend who relapses whilst you're around him, and you're having a good time, but he might smash you in the teeth at any moment.
Well, I would say
And you can't feel like that for 49 minutes.
this record is best enjoyed drunk. I found.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're full of beer, you're gonna have a wonderful time listening to this record.
Jack?
Sons of Satan.
Sons of Satan? Yeah.
It's a good pick. It's a good pick.
It was, yeah. I say as soon as that came on, that was.
I
the
think
thing
you're mad, but that's just.
that did sort of turn me going like I like the whole thing. It just I don't think I'll go back to it anytime soon.
That's fair.
But it's one of those things that I would at a lineup or a festival, whatever.
You check them out.
I would go see them. I'd aim to go see them. That's the thing. I would definitely go. I want to go watch these guys and see. I'm gonna go check out that second album now. You said it's more rock and roll.
Yeah.
But that was the other thing. The thing that did change me a little bit was on my Spotify one. They had like BBC sessions.
Yes,
afterwards.
I was gonna bring that up.
They're
some point,
brilliant.
so.
The BBC
Yeah.
sessions felt so much better.
Speaking
Not in a
of that,
rude way to
again,
the
the
production
first
or whatever,
album-
they just felt so much more lively, obviously because they're live sessions,
Yeah.
and it made me really, really like.
I
these
can't
live
speak
session
for
ones.
what they are now.
Yeah, and it had
pushing
that,
it further.
Yeah, it
I
was really good.
couldn't speak for what they sound like now, except for seeing them at Mastodon, because I don't know what that new singer's like in an intimate setting. But seeing them at the Borderline, which is about a 200, maybe 150 capacity
Yeah,
room,
150, 200.
on this album when they were beginners, like not beginners, they'd obviously been in different bands and done things before, but they were
Their
hungry.
first outing as
It was
Kvelertak.
specifically dangerous, like
Yeah.
almost to a
Yeah.
point. So bringing the bar scene into it.
I was going to say, just one more thing I wanted to bring up was the fucking joyous Turbo Negro like moments on this album.
Yeah.
there's bits where it is just like you want a giant man in a sailor hat with corpse paint singing some of these bits at you just to complete.
Whilst all five of you are just holding your fists in the air with Jägermeister spewing onto your faces.
definitely. Like the fact that them and Turbo Negro are from the same country.
Makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
makes a lot of sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, probably Scar for the last song, just because.
Yeah, the last song's
I
not
didn't-
my favourite.
Nothing
It wasn't
nothing
rubbish.
actively made me go, I don't like this. That was the thing.
If
Which
you
is a
like-
sign of a good album as well. 'cause
Yeah.
If you don't like the first 30 seconds of this album, you're probably not going to like this album.
Agreed. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I did.
I'm probably going to say I can't pick a best of, but I'm going to say the one that always makes me smile is Mjod.
So you
Like,
want
as
that,
soon
yeah?
as that one kicks in,
Absolutely.
Drunk for
I'm
God.
having a good time for Odin.
We'll go with that. But I'm doing the edit, so Sultans of Satan it is. No, what do you want, Mjord?
Actually, I want Ulvid. Because I'm like I was going to say, if you wanted a song that, if you're not into it by the time this kicks in and you don't want to hear more, then, it's not for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, next album, because you guys didn't get it right the first time, it's Kvelertaks. No. Next album is Alex's band, Iron Maiden, with Brave New World. The first,
Who?
I don't know, some up-and-coming band, I think. They had a better singer, and then they kicked him out, and they got this old one down.
Right,
I know
yeah.
that's Anthrax.
This am the true facts.
So Brave New
Hashtag
World,
bring back Bush.
Brave New World came out in the mid-2000s, exactly, and it's the first album
No, it
with
didn't.
the return. It says on the thing.
It came out.
It says on the
2000s.
wiki.
I was gonna say it came out mid 2000s. Like it came out.
No, sorry, not mid-2000s. The
29
middle period of
I was
2000.
saying 29th of May 2000 is not
He's getting rambunctious already.
not the middle
I
of the
thought they were attacking
2000s. Dang nabbit.
Damn it. He's swinging from a bottle of whiskey and he's menacing us with a knife at the moment.
I really like this, apparently.
I'm having a good time.
This is the what album number is this then, Alex?
50.
Off the top of your head, would you say? Giving you a little. It's the first album back with
12th, I want to say.
12th album, yeah. With
yeah, because the Book of Blaze is their 16th. So
it's the first album back with their old singer, Bruce Dickinson. And Alex had the guff and to show us a song from, what was it? Virtual 11?
No, X Factor.
Was it the X Factor?
The song with the 9.5 minute song with 19 chorus repeats.
19 chorus repeats, yes.
19. That's absurd.
And you know he would count as well.
Yeah, but don't you think he's a saviour? Don't you think he can save you? Don't you think he can save your life?
That's why
I mean,
he
it's
left.
got better.
Like drilling into the core of like a corkscrew until it drills into the mantle of the earth and makes your brain explode, and you actually start to doubt the mechanics of the English language.
You leave Andre the Giant alone. Anyway, this is the first first album back with Bruce Dickinson. And Alex, based off of what you showed us, this is a relatively revitalized Iron Maiden, considering what you showed us. The first thing I replied back after he showed us the video was, "What band is this?"
Yeah.
Because they played this song, and in my video autocorrected to the Wicker Man, and they actually looked younger somehow.
Yep. So this is the first record back for Bruce and Adrian.
Yes.
Adrian Smith, the long-serving guitar. So Adrian was in the band from Killers until Seventh Son, before leaving when Yannick Gers, who's still in the band, but he joined for the No Prayer for the Dying, Fear of the Dark era.
Got you.
And was there the whole way through the dark days in the 90s, where they were putting out stuff like The Angel and the Gambler, which was what I showed you.
That was bad.
Yep.
It's one of those things that I can't describe in any other way. Like,
The thing
you could
is,
put some sort of flamboyant swear word on it and just, no, it's just bad.
spunk hammers, every last one of them.
What was their thinking?
They were just trying to remain true to their roots.
No, I mean, what is their thinking in kicking out Bruce?
Bruce left.
Did he leave? Right.
Bruce,
so what was the story behind that then?
Bruce just wasn't. He wanted to go in a different musical direction.
Right. Considering the fact that Iron Maiden could have bought the world 3 times over at the
bearing
period.
in mind, after he left, he put out an album where he raps on one of the songs.
Why have you not shown us this one?
Yeah, for anyone interested, look up the song "Sacred Cowboy" from the Balls to Picasso record. And if you thought The Angel and the Gambler was a bad time, mind you, the chorus to that is really good, and he doesn't repeat it a million times.
Do you mean the cowboy song?
Yeah.
The cowboy song, not
yeah,
that
no,
one.
the cowboy.
The honky tonk badonkadonk.
That's the thing I thought about Angel and the Gambler a minute ago, was that like 10 people okayed this. 10 people said this is fine.
What do you mean?
All the band members said this is fine.
And the producer and Maiden's management listened to it and went, yeah, it's all right.
They probably had no choice. They were like, this is the best we've got.
Do you know, the thing is, though, there are songs on those Blaze records which you find on subsequent
Jack cut his mic.
Subsequent live Maiden releases, and in the hands of a better singer, they sound a more enthusiastic sounding band. They sound great. By the way,
do you remember that? What was that movie that you really liked about the guy who kind of loses the plot and the everyday office man that loses the plot and
Office Space.
Falling Down.
Falling Down. Yeah,
they did a song called "Falling Down" in which Blaze Bayley sings the words falling down" over and over again.
Yeah, you know when I said you start,
sick.
you know, I like that you immediately went to Office Space though. That's a good shout.
No, he's not losing his mind. He gets.
You have a DVD of this.
I have a VHS of this.
Even better.
I'm not the unfrozen caveman.
VHSs for anyone at home were like cassette tapes, but you watched films on them, and cassette tapes are that.
What's a cassette tape?
Oh, they're popular now. Did you not know? Bands keep putting out things as cassettes, even though no one owns a cassette player anymore.
I have a Demon Ball Gear cassette. That's just one of the weirdest things I own.
That's a deeply upsetting sentence.
Oh, it's free. And red.
No
But
comment.
yeah, so having played you both, even just a brief sample of the doldrums that was Maiden's 90s output,
Yeah.
what did you think of Brave New World? You look so upset when
I just put my thing down.
Anytime I reference that bullshit era, you immediately, like, your face just goes, "What is my life?"
Look, here's the thing. I can't
So
deny it.
what did you like? Because you said
Go to Nick first.
it was. You said to me it was like a. How is this even remotely the same band when the Wicker Man played? Like straight after watching that Blaze era
'cause,
track.
It was. So look, I mean, I'm a late Maiden fan. I came into the business where probably when I was in year 8, I'd bought Somewhere Back in Time, which I at first thought was an album.
Oh God, if they released albums like that and had 16 of them, like they'd be bigger than everyone.
I literally ran to my friend's house and we listened to that album probably about 7 times that night alone, specifically. And so, I mean, I'm not a massive Maiden fan. I've always been more of a Metallica persuasion, and Jack is kind of
I'm the same
in that respect. But I always have a weird spot for Maiden because I do like them, even though I find them to be kind of dad rocky at points.
Yeah, I suppose.
Especially now.
Oh God, yeah. They're well, certainly their latest output. I wouldn't.
But I can't see. I can't see the mindset that they were in when. I mean, what album did Bruce leave in?
Fear of the Dark.
Fear of the Dark, right? So not the greatest album, but they were still on top of the world at that point. So
that was the last time they did.
To replace him with Blaze Bayley, who looks like a 90s villain of any Steven Seagal movie.
the problem, yeah, but
whose sideburns should be censored like hentai, and I don't know that's the second time I brought that up now.
Yeah, but who are you going to get to replace Bruce?
That's the thing.
Who could you?
But why did they go for that?
Judas Priest hired Tim Ripper Owens, a man who at that point arguably had a voice that was as powerful, if not more so, than the one preceded it.
Well,
on those records.
When AC/DC kicked out Brian Johnson, they got fucking Axl Rose. I mean, not to say that
Bon Scott died, they got Brian Johnson.
Yeah.
Like they went for a completely different voice. Iron Maiden went for a completely different voice.
Sorry.
Those 90s albums, Steve was suffering massively with depression. They were all going through their first divorces. The whole band were having a complete shit show of a time.
Are they married again?
On top of that, you've got heavy metal effectively being erased from relevance with bands like Pantera,
like
Fear Factory,
Typo
Negative, Machine Head. They made bands like Iron Maiden and Priest and all that lot just kind of sound irrelevant.
No, it's not.
Especially when you've got like the Soundgardens and the Alice in Chains.
Look, you're not gonna. You don't have to revitalize the history of heavy metal. I know exactly what went on. I'm just saying.
You know what I'm saying.
The thought to replace. What I'm saying is that you listen to anything pre-metal. You listen to the old Maiden stuff. Mm-hmm. You listen to the Blaze Bayley stuff with closed eyes and ears, and then you listen to this album. And not only does it, even though this album has got no song is less than 4 minutes long.
Yep.
And it's punchier, punkier, and better sounding all around than anything Blaze had done.
They sound hungry.
Yeah,
they don't sound like they're in the doldrums. They don't sound complacent.
There was something in that Metal Hammer thing that they were like when he was the producer. I can't remember who was the producer for it.
So this was Kevin Shirley's first. Kevin Shirley's done every album from 2000 onwards.
Yeah, and Steve Harris has produced pretty much all of them, hasn't he? He's always had his hand in the pie of
everything from Killers, which was the second record, because he hated the sound of the first record so much he refused to.
I'll do it myself. Yeah,
but
I really like the sound of the first record, but that's just by the by.
Yeah.
Dude, I gotta say, I really like this album. I actually, it obviously is not without its problems, and its problems that have kind of become a lot more prevalent in later Maiden.
Yes,
but some
of those problems, but also massively evident in that mid-90s output.
Yes, even though the mid-90s output's kind of my favourite period besides Seventh Son stuff.
You mean the mid 80s?
Not mid 90s. Sorry,
mid 80s,
late 2000s with the Dance of Death and
and the mid 80s, late 80s stuff
kind of
where those progressive elements really started coming in even more so.
So I'm a massive Tool fan, and I'm a massive Opeth fan. And the one thing that I think that bands that try and do songs that are 10-minute epics do, when they do them right, you don't know 10 minutes has passed. Yeah. You can only it sounds like you'd been like. For me, things like Blood Brothers are bad. No, Blood Brothers, 7-minute long song. Goes on, it's almost like, it feels like it's only 2 choruses long and you're waiting for the chorus anymore. They have such a command of a good chorus, and they have a brilliant, subtle ability to slightly change the songs that it doesn't sound, for the most part anyway, where they don't.
There's a song about a man who wanders in a desert that... massively falls victim to that later Iron Maiden.
Yes, there's an almost Blaze-like element to one of the songs. Yeah. But no, I'm a sucker for joint chorus singing high pitched. I'm a huge Blind Guardian fan, so I can't sit there and say songs like The Wicker Man or Out of the Silent Planet, which is the most refreshing song, especially after what I would say is a bit of a dirge in the album.
It's Nomad's definitely the lowest point, and that.
Well, I was kind of dancing around that. I was going to let Jack take off for what he thinks about this stuff.
That turbo gallop for when Out the Silent Planet kicks in is joyous.
Oh, we'll cut to the bad part of the album, but right, Jack, what do you think?
I've got 3 problems with this.
Right.
I've got 3 big problems. I'm going to go through them, and then I'm going to say something at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
The repetitive choruses are absurdly repetitive, but it makes sense given the fact that a lot of the
remember they are an arena band as well.
A lot of the verses are very, very wordy.
That's been an Iron Maiden staple for a very long time.
A lot of the choruses are kind of designed to be sung to 100,000 person festivals.
Absolutely.
Like if you watch
I agree with you though. There are certain bits where I'm kind of like, oh, Bruce has brought out his Theosaurus again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could do without the chorus for Nomad, or to a lesser extent something like Brave New World.
Yes, Brave New World is
especially
the one.
He does I like the way he changes the way he sings it.
Yeah.
And if you listen to the live version from the Rock in Rio show, it changes even more.
Yeah.
But I'm mate, that's my for me personally.
I think the Mercenary suffers from that a bit as well.
Certainly on much later albums, that's like the biggest sin they commit is long songs with too many chorus repeats.
I listened to the 2015 remaster of this. That was like the primary one I listened to, and the remaster is fantastic. It's super duper worth listening to if you haven't. I don't hugely. I know it's their thing. I don't hugely like the gallop. I don't like the gallop. I
think it's
their thing.
It's like jumping into a genre. In of itself, where if you don't like the staple of that genre, then
you're not going to have a good time.
Not going to have it. And I'm kind of agree with you because I'm not like people slag off the Iron Maiden gallop. Sorry, slag off. They fucking jerk off the Iron Maiden gallop all the time. And if you like that, that's fair. To me and to you, it's like okay, yes, and.
Well, I know that you're certainly a big fan of the reverse Metallica gallop on. Like stuff like Battery, where it's like
I'm a thrash kid. Well,
they take that gallop, they just invert the rhythm, so it's even more abrasive.
Absolutely.
Specifically on the first album, really, I would say.
Yeah, well, specifically the main riff, the Battery, is like a reverse of the.
Yeah, but I wouldn't really call that the gallop so much as just like a sledgehammer pounding
that's a gallop rhythm. It's just they change up.
But what compared to but we're comparing it to the Iron Maiden.
Yeah, which is what I'm saying is it's a far more aggressive version of it. So I get why you dig it more.
Yeah.
No, but people specifically, when we talk about Metallica, they don't talk about the gallop. Like, Maiden is the only band that I've ever heard the word the gallop used so much.
Yeah. But the thing is, there's not actually that much gallop on this whole album anyway.
No, there isn't. Yeah,
there's very little of it. Steve Harris's bass tone, I'm not a fan. There's not enough bass in it. There's too much click, which is fine because I get it because he's so important in the music. But after
It's
all
his
those,
band, effectively.
Yeah, I think so. After all those three things, I really love this. I think
Okay,
it's
he
brilliant.
does write the theme tune, sing the theme tune.
Yeah,
So
but see, I love this album. I think it's amazing.
Really?
I really, really love it.
I'm surprised by
I
how
was-
much
I was-
enjoyed
I was-
it.
I really loved it. So
'Cause
much so
honestly,
that I want to go and listen to
when
more
we picked
things
these-
now. That I
Yeah.
want to go listen. I'd never really listened to a full Maiden album. I knew your
Really?
bits, not a full album. I knew all the
'Cause
bits
I-
and
I
pieces.
sort
I knew
of-
all the bits and pieces.
I
You know
sort of
what Maiden-
suspect. I
Maiden
sort of
are.
I knew what
suspected.
they should sound like, and I listened to this and I was like, I put it on. And I was like, you know, I know Wicker Man and stuff like that. I know
Yeah.
Brave New World. Great. I know a couple of bits at least already.
Yeah.
And I just really, really dug it. I really
So I-
like way more than I expected to.
Yes.
I sort of suspected that like there might be bits you go, oh, this is quite cool, and then the rest of it you go, it's
Yeah, I
bit-
think some
you know,
of the
there's-
Shikari
choices-
problem.
like
I
the
think
like the
s-
rest of it you'd sort of be going, yeah, this is very dad rock.
That's the thing. I don't like.
It is incredibly dad rock. Like, believe
Yeah.
me, if you're not into this scene and this is the first thing you would ever listen to,
But I'd
and you
suggest-
didn't understand the staples of
Yeah.
specifically
of
Maiden,
them already. Yeah.
I don't.
because there are a couple of chorus lines that you're just like, oh, that's cheesy as
That's
fuck.
the thing. I think
Yeah.
is like you can't ever. No one can ever blame like Iron Maiden and not like something like Blind Guardian for the lyrics. That's
Yeah.
not fair because that's what I was thinking. What's the one where he's walking through a garden? What's that one?
Oh, I'm the Fear of the Dog.
No, on this album. He talks about walking through a garden.
Oh, I don't know.
I think it's Blood Brothers.
I was thinking the one where he
Before
sings about
that.
bring this noble savage back home, or whatever it is. goes.
That's Brave New World.
yeah.
he talks about. Yeah, I think it is Brave New World. But he talks about going for a garden and stuff.
God,
like
that is Blood Brothers.
Oh, it's Blood Brothers. That was
'Cause
it. And I was
it's-
like,
it's-
Blood Brothers is probably my favourite song on the album.
It's
actually.
the and in a glimpse my father beckons to me because
Yeah.
Steve wrote it about his dad
it's one in a
because
beautiful way.
his dad died prior to this album coming out.
That's not nice, but it's wonderfully cringy. The lyrics are wonderfully cringy.
Yes.
And like I like them
It's-
because there's so much belief in when he talks about them.
Yeah.
that
Hey.
makes me go like, you know what? I believe I'm in a garden.
It's
as
like
well.
it's like an
I-
opera play.
So
almost.
I had like a full on manly like watching Terminator 2 as Arnie's thumb
With the thumb.
goes
Yeah.
into the
I was wondering where you were going with
into
this.
the steel mill like the
Arnie's naked, stealing clothes from people, saying that they're blood
Singing
brothers.
out of the silent
no.
planet.
No, the first time I saw Iron Maiden play Blood Brothers live, I had like a full on. I have emotions. I cried at the end of Terminator 2, tear like running down my cheek.
Wow,
As,
if you
like,
cried at the end of Terminator 2, I've
80
got some movies you need to
as
watch.
like it's a joke.
Just joking.
as-
as
as
was
like-
I fucking literal
as-
nonsense.
Was it
as-
joke,
as
okay?
like
It was a
the-
Christmas joke.
As like the as the other 80,000 people around me all saying that
See,
chorus.
this is the Maiden fanatic in him. It's like, I will not allow any longevity in this.
So the Wicker Man.
Boo. Sorry.
You said the Wicker Man was like a massive, like
The
almost
Wicker
like
Man
a
is an
different
interesting
band.
song because you hear
'Cause-
it the first time and you go, "This is cool," and then
The other version,
yes,
the other version.
did you
the-
listen to that, Jack?
I
Yeah.
did listen to that one. Yeah.
And then you listen
Is-
to the Wicker Man,
Man,
again,
you
the
listen-
original one, and it sounds unfinished.
And then, but you listen to the original US radio edit, and like because for
By the
anyone
way,
who
Blind
does,
Guardian is fuck that chorus when it
for,
gets to the
for,
video.
for anyone who doesn't know, there's a whole load of extra harmonies that are put in the chorus, and it just sounds
Completes the song.
so much
Yeah,
better.
absolutely.
The reason they didn't put it in on the album version was because Bruce didn't think he'd be able to do it live.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, but there's also six
A-
members
but-
of the
but
band.
Steve and Adrian
Yes.
sing live, so I don't see why
Why didn't need
Age
yeah.
couldn't have sung for.
Yeah, that's.
I gotta fight more Eddies, or they'll think we're pufters.
That's,
my,
that's the wrong guitarist. But
Sorry.
my only other gripe was that
That's
as
Yannick.
much as I like Bruce's harmonies, I'd like to have a variation of someone else doing it, just to have a different voice.
I think he's varied enough.
I-
Do you mean like an almost gang vocal
No.
bit?
Or like a
Maybe it's
second voice just
Well,
to
Out of the
sweeten
Silent
the-
Planet
different
kinda does
voice.
that.
Yeah,
That was-
that's why, and I quite like
No,
that.
I
But
agree
when
with
I
you,
hear it
but-
on stuff like Blood Brothers and whatnot, which again I love it. It would just be nice
I was
to
gonna say,
hear
if you-
a different voice because there's obviously because he's so wordy in his verses, and they're great. But I've heard so much of his voice that hearing now double layers of his voice towards the end is like that's a lot of your voice.
But
here,
that is the reason that Adrian does.
which I'm sure live. I'd
Adrian
probably
and
love it
Steve
even
do a
more.
lot of backup vocals for him live.
I mean, this album
Love
is
it.
also
when they do the choruses. So, in fact, I've seen them do like Wasted Years, and Adrian sung like whole verses
Oh, dude, that's
just to
interesting, just to mix
just
it
to
up.
sort of show off how good Adrian is as a
Yeah.
singer, which is why I go back to if you wrote a chorus that good with the Your Time Will Come, Don't Turn, Don't Run, or the Thy Will Be Done's, why don't you have that as the final version when you wrote something when you've got another singer in the band who is proved to be that good? Like,
use them.
When Adrian left Maiden, he fronted his own bands and he sang and played guitar, and like he does.
And he smashed it. I presume.
Not all of the records are like things I would necessarily revisit after checking them out, just as a curiosity. But his voice is great on them.
Yeah, can't fault the man.
Yeah, I mean okay, let's get into some of the problems that I have with the album. It's too long.
I didn't feel that for me.
I can't, only because you've got songs. There's a little bit of an Iron Maiden dirge, which is again a staple problem of the later stuff that I have a problem with, which is like they start to go from 4 minutes. Iron Maiden, I think,
there's
are
only
best
one
when
9-minute dirge for me. But
when they Iron Maiden can be brilliant at doing long songs, but I feel like they made their bones on doing 4-minute anthems, like Trooper and
this is
Run to the
certainly
Hills.
something that I've found with their later output.
With their later stuff, when they've gone, we need to go more. This probably is where you don't really understand because you've not really listened to any of their later stuff. But their later stuff is almost.
No, I listened to Book of Souls.
When you
mate,
it took me a week.
So when I said, oh God, off the back of that fucking record, when I said Brave New World, you must have gone, oh Christ,
what
a
was
new
the one
Maiden
before
album,
that, the
surely
Space
not.
Final Frontier.
Final Frontier.
I quite liked that. I thought there was some bits.
I thought the first two tracks on it were brilliant. Again, they're probably the shortest tracks on the album. I think.
Yes.
I'm not saying that literally.
If you cut off the long intro off Final Frontier, that is the shortest track.
And they're
the
two best.
And Eldorado goes past like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a weird.
And then it goes. Where the wild wind blows. Isn't that like isn't that 13 minutes? Or
11
something?
minutes.
11 minutes.
I really
That's
like that.
long.
I like that song though.
Well, that's the thing. So that's where I have a problem with songs like Nomad, and to a much lesser extent Dream of Mirrors, because Dream of Mirrors does have a fucking. The ending is wicked to that song.
Dream of Mirrors to me is like you could have cut it down and had something almost like off the first.
It's like a Death Magnetic problem.
Self-editing in Iron Maiden, like something that seriously needs to be addressed in that camp after the last few records.
But then
Take
again,
a
they're
fucking
also
chainsaw to those those song lengths and those chorus repeats.
I feel like it also sits between two different Iron Maiden fans as well, where there's the very, very casual fan. I mean, I don't really think there is such thing as not a casual Iron Maiden fan. I think I might be the exception of the casual fan who goes, yeah, great, Blood Brothers, Wicker Man, I don't know, fucking Dance of Death or whatever. And then you go, people like you, who, if they dropped Dream of Mirrors live, would probably pass out screaming.
Throw your knickers on stage.
See, like even it just goes on a bit. That song, it's one of the two weak moments on on this album for me.
Yeah, but if you've had a couple of beers and you're watching Iron Maiden in fucking Poland,
I'm gonna
the Navigator.
Oh mate, if they drop Ghost of the Navigator, it'd be game over. It'd be like
what I mean.
It'd be like when they played Where Eagles Dare when I saw them in Krakow last year.
Where Eagles Dare isn't even really a deep cut, is it?
It's not one they've played since the
but then they've never also
very
played,
early
Rhyme of
90s.
the Ancient Mariner, which is a crime. I know they played it like once and that.
Fuck you, that song is amazing.
No, I said it's crime that they'd never played it.
Oh right, I was gonna. No, they.
I don't even like Pale Slave that much.
They played it on the World Slavery tour for Power Slave, and then they didn't bring it back till they did one of the history tours later on.
It is interesting actually if you look at the credit for the writing though. Weirdly enough, Bruce isn't on much of it. Like he's not like I know obviously he doesn't really write the lyrics does he?
Yeah, he writes.
Does he?
Does a lot of lyric writing.
Because the writing I'm looking at, obviously I'm looking at like Wikipedia because I don't have the album in front of me here, but it's like most of them, as you would expect, Steve Harris and
Adrian
Yannick Gers.
Yeah, Yannick. As much as I'm not a fan of his
like you think
guitar playing live, some of his
because it's
some
a Bruce
a
and
lot,
Harris
a lot of the
return.
stuff he Smith.
Sorry, Adrian.
A lot of the stuff he contributes to the albums.
That
generally
was
some
my
of the
point.
better tracks.
Him and Adrian Smith, and they're like the Wicker Man. Yeah, you got both of them guys, and then it's kind of like Adrian's not really part of this, to be honest.
See, this is what's interesting with the songwriting for this record. I believe it's Blood Brothers, Dream of Mirrors,
Who are you talking about?
I want to say Nomad, and there's one other track, but they were all written during the Virtual 11 sessions.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So they were written when Blaze was in the band. So
God, Blaze singing Blood Brothers, I couldn't even imagine.
can you
I'm not
imagine?
going to.
Can you imagine Blaze singing "Dream of Mirrors"?
Oh, I can, based off the 9-minute long clip you were going to play me.
Or aren't you glad I played you the 4.5 minute one?
Yes. I wouldn't have heard this, otherwise me and Jack would have been just ignoring you when you were talking about Blaze.
So Brave New World.
Yeah.
Fuck it, who cares?
I think that was one of the ones that was written during that period as well. I think that was the last one.
That one I wouldn't be so surprised about.
But then I don't know, they were very new back to the band. Like I've been listening to Bruce's biography, and had like a flying incident that inspired the lyrics for Ghost of the Navigator, where he was trying to fly somewhere and all the instruments crapped out over them in like Central Europe. Like, well, I guess if we go that way, we're sort of heading to where we want. And they were having to fly World War II style with charts and plotting things.
Of course he would.
Which is where Ghost of the Navigator, although it's obviously about a ship's captain, it sort of inspired him to write the lyrics for it.
All right. Anybody else want anything else to say about it? No.
I
think this is kind of a slam dunk, I guess.
Yeah,
it's
I
probably.
think you
yeah,
smashed this
I
one.
actually really like this album. I would actually. There's a couple of, especially the one thing I was thinking about when we were listening to this was I knew, obviously, like you said, we knew the Wicker Man. Everyone that you can't not go through metal without at least hearing that song from Bruce. But I was looking for deep cuts that I would actually enjoy hearing live if I ever did see them, and that's why I'd probably say this is a success, because there is quite a few deep cuts that if they like, especially out the Silent Planet, as we've already said, and Ghost of Navigator, and it's the second song in, it's not really a song that they play very often.
I've seen them play it exactly once at a Sonosphere in 2010.
I'd be quite okay with.
Was that? I didn't know what was going on.
Yes.
No, that was that whole set.
They opened with the Wicker Man on that one.
That whole set was. Yes, they did.
I'm not going to tell you where I was.
They played the first.
Let's just say that they're coming up as the album record.
Oh no, they're not. They're.
I was going to say they base it. If you look at the track listing for the Rock in Rio live album, they basically opened it like that.
Oh, okay.
And then after Wrathchild dropped Eldorado.
El Dorado, fuck me.
That was like cool. World premiere of that song.
Yeah, you know where I was? I was at high voltage getting beaten up during Opeth for the first time ever. Right, so...
I was say, but given the context of when this album came out as well...
I think context is everything for this album.
It was like...
Because otherwise it would be...
Given how heavy it sounds for what's theoretically an old man dad metal band...
Here's a question for you,
like,
just hypothetically.
When it came out the same era as... new metal was kind of dying off at that point.
Yeah.
And like the biggest thing in the mainstream would have been Linkin Park.
Yeah,
I guess so.
This
Green
was
Day?
like definitely world. Linkin Park.
Well,
but like
they were in the metal world, but they weren't a metal band.
This was like a proper old
school,
about
strictly metal,
like
a
proper old school heavy metal band. Probably the biggest of that particular type of heavy metal band, coming back with probably their heaviest album to date at that point.
Yeah. Here's what I was going to ask you,
and really giving people something to nail their colours to the mast for.
On that motif, what?
Because they sold out Earl's Court with Slayer and
that's a weird set.
I can't think who else was on that bill, but it was like
Bloodbath.
I think Sepultura weirdly enough were on that bill as well.
Huh. I like the bill. Weird.
Yeah, I quite like the bill.
Weird bill. That was like they sort of went, let's get lots of our mates' bands to come and play with us.
Yeah.
And
Iron Maiden seemed to be the only headliner that, like Slayer, it'd still be okay to follow afterwards.
Well, they did that at Donington 1990.
Yeah, they've done it a bunch of times.
But like
it's 29 years ago.
Yeah.
Just to say, sorry.
But so,
he's
like,
old.
2 years older than you pricks. But yeah, like they booked Slayer specifically because they were like, oh well, everyone reckons they're the band that no one can follow. Fucking prove that wrong.
No, of course, Bruce would say
like
that.
When they came back, Bruce started making all sorts of noise about Metallica.
Yeah,
and how the real.
Let's not go there. We were just talking about how
the real kings of heavy. The real kings of heavy.
Anyway,
metal
as I was just the last question I was going to ask you is a completely hypothetical here. Now let's just say, this is Bruce has always been in the band, and same with Harris or Adrian Smith. Would this album be as important to their catalogue if this was just another Iron Maiden album? Considering,
knowing what I know of Bruce's solo output, possibly not.
Like, because this album's a big deal in the Maiden world.
Yeah, and there's
because of the context.
Because of the context. But if
it went straight from Fear of the Dark to this to then.
So if you take out the X Factor and you stuck in Virtual Eleven and put in Bruce and Adrian's album they worked on together in the 90s, which is An Accident of Birth. That
what a title!
Oh mate, it's such
one apt title.
What a record!
God.
Like then potentially not.
No,
that album was stronger than anything Maiden had done for 10 years at that point, and it was two of their sort of bona fide,
their backbone
core members of like the classic era going, oh yeah, we're just gonna drop this banger of a record and just sort of make that point very quietly and move on.
Okay. Well, that was Brave New World by Iron Maiden. Jack, would you like to pick a worst song, favourite song?
Favourite song, Blood Brothers.
Yeah.
Worst song, because I do like it so much. It is Ghost of the Navigator, because for 3 listens...
Worst song?
I thought he was saying Ghost of the Alligator.
The worst song?
No, I get it.
Not when Nomad's on the same record.
I love everything else, though. That's the thing.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Dislike my one then, because my favourite song is probably... just because you've said it, I'm going to say Ghost of the Alligator. My favourite song is probably going to be Out of the Silent Planet, and my least favourite song is going to be The Thin Line Between Love and Hate, just because it's the most forgettable one on the album. At least fair. Nomad, I'm going to unfortunately remember that chorus till I die.
See, for me, Out of the Silent Planet, it's
just such a refreshing bit after the 9-minute.
No, sorry, Thin Line Between Love and Hate. If you turn if you listen to it on headphones and you turn it really loud, right at the very, turn it up really loud right at the very end,
and then you hum Go to the Alligator over it.
You can hear Nico going, "Oh, I fucking missed it," and then you hear someone like chiming in from the control room, "Oh, I've got to keep that in. Oh, I fucking missed it." So good.
All right, Alex, what song would you like to? What's the worst song, and then what song would you like to play us off with? Because I'm not going to let you pick a favourite one because you're going to be here for like 6 more hours.
I like all 15 tracks. It's only 10 tracks. It's 15.
15 tracks.
True Maiden fans, it's 15.
I'm going to have The Wicker Man, as it was the comeback knockout punch single for them effectively. And I'm going to have Nomad as the worst song on the record.
Nomad, yep, fair enough. I was very happy you saying that because I remember texting him after the first time I'm listening, going like, I'm like, Alex, you're not a massive proponent of the Nomad, are you? Like, because I didn't realise the argument I might have had if he was like, that's the one I cried at.
That's my favourite.
I really like some of the really cinematic, like sounding musical moments, and then it just keeps going and going and going. Yeah. So like, I fully get the oh god, not this song.
Yeah. Okay, all right, there we go then. Ended up punching each other outside of my shed, but I feel like we're all better now and I can't feel my legs. Give me morphine.
That's just the cold.
Well, that was a very unusual set from all 3 of us, I believe, like showcasing our different musical interests from, from old man to oldish man and then to young child in old man's body. I guess we'll probably go on with what our next albums are going to be then. So I guess, Jack, why don't you take us away? What are we going to pick?
Ronsky, do you know where Bedford is?
Do I know what?
Do you know where Bedford is?
Bedford?
Yeah. Bedford.
The place?
Where's Bedford? You're going to be enjoying Don Broco's Technology.
Oh, you are fucking joking.
No.
God damn.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah, you are.
You're
mate.
So, Alex, what's your
Your initial
relationship with Don Broco?
Donny B, I'll
Donny
have
B.
you know.
Sorry.
God almighty.
All I remember,
know
Alex.
Nick's had some
The only
time
thing
with
I ever
this,
remember
so-
Alex in conjunction with
I
that
really
was
hate
we were
that
standing
man.
outside of a show. I can't remember what it was. It was HMV. No, Cannibal Corpse with Fat Dahlia Rider, and the advertisement outside of HMV forum, Kentish Town, was a big picture. Don Broco new album Technology, and I pointed to him and I heard, "Oh, people are saying good things about it," and he said, "Yeah, cunts."
Oh, he quoted the Hound on it. Lots of people like Don Broco.
So I
Lots
think
of
I already know.
cunts.
Yes. He went full the Hound on it.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, I know you spent some time with it, and
So I listened to it. I'm not familiar with the whole album, which is why I'm going to be interested in listening to the whole thing.
It's quite long.
I checked it
will
out
not lie.
based off of a recommendation from another podcast I was listening to, and I found my first time I listened to it. I was like, oh god, this is a Jack band.
Yeah,
And then
it is.
and then weirdly enough, it is so earwormy to the point where the songs have actually got the music video parody videos are actually, strangely enough, for a band like this, funny.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm going to put them in the group. They are super worth
That's
watching.
alright. I mean, they were all on. What's
Lots-
that? Oh, I can't remember. It's like not Jersey Shore, the posh British version.
Fuck knows. I don't watch TV.
Anyways, Essex?
No, the posh version.
Shameless.
No, I can't think what it's called. But, you know, it's all right. They were on that, so you know,
Enter Shikari.
proves their quality.
Yes, I don't know too much about them. I only know the singles from this and maybe one other song. I know Porky's, which is probably the worst song I've ever heard in my life.
Oh,
but
yeah,
it is. But they
What,
are
the 1980s American precursor to
no.
American Pie?
No.
Yeah, I've got to
Deeply
say,
upsetting.
I managed to actually catch them weirdly enough on the same holiday I was listening to them, and I have to say, live, they're actually really fucking entertaining.
I've seen them like 4 or 5 times now, I've realised.
Because have you seen them? You knew them before this album.
I saw them at a Slam Dunk, and I saw they did my university when I was in Hatfield. They did like a Christmas show there, which was really good. I saw them at Wembley Arena in like February. Loads of times.
Okay, cool.
Really large amount of times. Don Broco's Technology.
Don
Enjoy.
Broco's Technology. Alex, let's go with you next. What old man stuff are you going to make? We
He's
say
dead
like
inside.
Morbid Angel.
Funny you should say that.
Okay.
Oh.
I had picked something decidedly more silly. I was going to go with Stormtroopers of Death, Speak English or Die this week.
What is that?
Oh, that was the guys from Anthrax and Nuclear Assault and Brutal Truth's original. They were like Muni Waste before Muni Waste were a thing.
Oh, okay.
But I'm going to go with Florida Legends, Morbid Angels, Domination album, their 4th record.
I'm going to have a good week.
I know very little about this.
Well, Alex, would you like to give us just a little taste of what Domination is?
You want to know where Gojira got a lot of their riffing style from? Morbid Angel is one of the one of the places to go and visit.
Okay,
Domination.
Sold. That's got my money.
Well, you've just listened to Gojira for the first time, so this will be an interesting
No.
experience for you.
Yeah, if you
I've
like-
just listened to Mars from Sirius for the first time. I
If
listened
you
to
like,
everything else.
if you like the riffing on from Master Sirius,
fucking love the riffing on
then
Mars Sirius.
Domination's a
So
good,
Morbid Angel
good
came out.
entry point for Morbid Angel.
They came out in the. Did they come from the Florida scene?
Yeah, Altars of Madness came out in '89.
So they came out around the period of like Deicide, Obituary,
Death, Cannibal Corpse.
Death. The only 2 bands that I ever see
Immolation.
get mentioned by bands that I love are Morbid Angel and Death. They're the only 2 bands I feel like transcend it, even though I quite like Obituary and Deicide. But like Morbid Angel are probably, I'd say, the Metallica of death metal.
I'd say that'd be Cannibal Corpse. They're more like the.
No, Cannibal Corpse is not like AC/DC of.
Oh yeah, I suppose. I suppose. But yeah, certainly in terms of like the most inventive sounding death metal bands.
To the point where Domination came
it's
out.
them and death, basically.
What year did Domination come out in?
1990.
It came out in like 95 or something, and
95, yeah.
And it sounds like it puts new metal to like new death metal to shame with how original it sounds.
Sick.
Like you figure you'd hear. I mean, I think you've heard some of early early death metal.
Old school Cannibal
Like,
Corpse and stuff like that.
well, have you ever heard of what just the sound of like what early death metal is? Which it's almost like a tin version, like knocked down.
it's
So thrash metal, but no one can figure out how to record it properly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so it's like black metal.
It's just
Got
like
it.
no, like
yeah,
but the production sounds better. It's just
cool. Fair.
Yeah, this is. I'm going to be very interested to see what you think of this because this shocked me when I heard it, and I heard it last year. Right, okay. So my one, just to punish all of you, is going to be Daughter. No, I'm joking. The look of horror on their faces.
Anxiety Attack the album.
Yeah, God, I fucking love that Daughters. I was just listening to it the other day because we're renovating my kitchen, so it's completely empty, but there's still the oven in there, so I'm cooking with it in the pitch black, listening to Daughters, looking over my shoulder every
Thinking
3
about
times.
putting your head in the oven.
Fucking album.
Sounds like a horrible time.
It's a horrible album. No, my album is going to be, we're going to go to Brooklyn, and we're going to be listening to goth
Beastie
legends.
Boys.
Beastie Boys. We're going to be listening to October Rust by Typo Negative.
Oh, okay, cool.
Nice.
Who are the goth giants in all senses of the word.
Would your girlfriend's girlfriend recommend this record?
Girlfriend's Girlfriend is on this album.
Excellent.
Jack looks
so
very puzzled
girlfriend's girlfriend was the big single on.
It's one of the big singles.
One of the big singles on October Rust. I don't know.
Have you heard anything from Typo Negative
outside that? But
2 songs maybe. Like,
do you know what they at least sound like?
It's slipping my mind.
So they put it this way: they were going out on tour with bands like Pantera in the 90s,
and sounding
nothing remotely like it.
Okay.
And to the point where there's actually a video where Pantera are playing and P.T. Steele, who's the singer from this band, comes in and starts sweeping up the stage as they're playing.
Oh, I know about this.
Phil Anselmo just falls over and allows Pete, just starts rolling off the stage.
And this is fully roided out Phil Anselmo at this point, and P.T. Steele makes him look like a child.
He was like a 6'8" monster, wasn't he?
6'7" almost. He's like a
huge.
Joey Ramone meets like fucking just
Sylvester. Joey Ramone meets roided up Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, probably one of the few bands that if they'd ever played again, I probably would cry in a lovely way to see them.
Out your penis.
Out my penis in all sense of the world. And in our meat triangle, balls dangle, which is a lyric from the song. I hope you enjoy.
Excellent.
All right, everyone, that was Metal Punters, and we'll see you next week, probably. Maybe not.
Yeah,
Laters.
Laters.